Is the way interns are treated in the business environment ethical, and are educational institutions, in a way, perpetuating any potential unethicality of how they're treated? So here's my question for you, and here's the scenario. So individuals go to school at academic institutions, and they're told to network, and the best way to do that is to get an internship, because not only do they learn skills in their intended profession, they also make connections. And that's undeniably extremely valuable to the student. But the students oftentimes in these internships, as they're labeled, are not paid. Now, I will say in your larger companies, your Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, they understand the system. Their internship programs are basically seasonal employees. They bring employees in for semesters or for summertime employment, and they pay them as if they were an employee. And the reason they do this is because generally the labor laws and the tax laws say they should. If you have an individual who is replacing the work that an employee would otherwise do, then the Fair Labor Standards Act says they should be paid at least minimum wage. And then the tax rules say that you should be withholding from these individuals' wages, things like Social Security, Medicare, etc., or at least income taxes from their wages. Now, if you replace that person with an unpaid intern, none of this happens. They're not making at least the bare minimum wage, and you're not collecting any of these taxes. So how have educational institutions kind of perpetuated this? Well, they oftentimes give students academic credit if they take the internship during a semester. Now, me personally, I managed internships at a school for many years, and it was a very important part of my job to educate these employers that, look, just because a student is receiving academic credit doesn't mean you don't have to pay the student. That is federal law that is outside of the student's purview. But I saw so many other academic institutions who weren't managed by someone who at least understood the legal rules and compliance that were simply allowing this scenario where the companies were taking advantage of these students by bringing them on as interns and not compensating them, because they were, in effect, using them the exact way you would use an employee. They were just giving them a job for a temporary amount of time so they didn't have to hire someone else to do that job, and they weren't paying them. So my question is whether this is ethical. Now, ethics goes a lot further than just the law. Lots of people opine that, well, the student gets such benefits out of it from the networking, from the skill acquisition, and they are in an academic institution where they're receiving academic credit. So the value that they're receiving is far more than just minimum wage. So because they are receiving value, it is ethical, regardless of whether they're receiving $7.25 or the federal minimum wage or the state minimum wage in that given state. They're receiving much more value in a different way. So it is ethical. It doesn't matter that the law says they shouldn't be doing it, that they should be receiving the money in addition to. It's still ethical. Others would say, well, no, it's completely unethical because you're taking advantage of a student's need or desire to become successful in life. And if there is a barrier or wall to success, unless you voluntarily work for others in a way that's against the law, but you voluntarily work and sacrifice your effort, time, where you could be dedicating that to other things in order to achieve that, that is an artificial barrier that's being perpetuated by this environment. And to support that is unethical. If the employer is receiving value from the student, it doesn't cost them anything to provide them with the connections and things of that nature, or to put it on the student's resume that they undertook these tasks or skills in the organization. So really the company is doing nothing but receiving value. So is that ethical that the company is using their position as a company and this artificial barrier to solicit free employees, if you will? So those are kind of the 2 points of view there, right? One, yes, students are receiving a ton of value. 2, yes, the employer's receiving a ton of value at no cost, that they could give that value and pay in that scenario. And is the school in some way perpetuating this otherwise potentially ethical or unethical scenario? So that's what I want you to think about. Do you have an opinion on it? Let me know. Jump down in the forum. I want to hear about it. Please jump on the forums at thebusinessprofessor.com. But regardless, I hope to see you on the platform sometime soon. Till then, take care.